眩しかった日のこと。そんな夏の日のこと。
Protagonist? We're not what? Burning sunlight and the sound of cicadas. Today also looked like it would be a hot day. The third summer that I faced since the day I was first hospitalized. Of course, it's not like I was hospitalized the whole time. There were days interrupted with home and outpatient care.
半年前だろうか。最後に来てくれたのは。
The time I spent wearing pajamas slowly grew, and as if in a direct proportion, the number of people who came to visit me shrank. At first, classmates came to visit me every day, people that were once called friends. Now they had turned into acquaintances. Even if I meet them on the street, they'd leave and after exchanging a few words of greeting. Soon those acquaintances will turn to strangers, but someday I'll probably be erased from their memories.
どうやらいい気がしないのだろう。普通に生きてる人にとって私の存在ってのは。
Even if they meet me, it probably doesn't raise their spirits. The same probably goes for thinking about me.
だから消すことにしたのだと思う。
Despite that, whatever the end of the school day came, every day I continued to watch for someone to come. And then, after a year of awaiting, I stopped looking outside. Finally learned to close the curtain, accept the fact, guess that's the reason.
3年もかけて私にも分かるようになった。
It's not that they had forgotten about me. It seemed that they made it as if, from the start, they never even knew me, never saw me, as if there had been nothing there to begin with. Hey, that's
彼らも
harsh.
また目をつぶっていたいのかもしれない。
Around when I was being admitted in and out of the hospital, and people had already stopped coming to visit me, and I had most likely been erased from everyone's memories, my family moved. From the freestanding home we had long lived in an apartment. And mother started working part-time in a nearby takeout lunch shop. The meaning behind it all, even I couldn't understand. Hospital fees were no joke. In the ward, every day, it was a conversation topic for the patients. They came to know how the patients themselves felt the responsibility to their families far more than the families could ever imagine. And then, the small, old, slightly dirty wooden building that was our new home. On top of being smaller, Father's daily commute stretched to over 2 hours. However, the distance I had to take to the hospital became a 30-minute walk. In front of that beat-up, cramped apartment, Father said, "The air here is nice and feels good, doesn't it?" Saying that, he smiled, and Mother smiled in the same way. Because the heat might aggravate my health, they put an air conditioner in my room. Of course, no other room had one. And Mother, who had started going to that part-time job, often brought back croquettes and fries for me, saying they were leftovers. In that cramped room, we ate together. Always, they smiled happily. It was very painful. Who was talking? Their thoughtfulness was unbearably painful. Instead of feeling thankful or happy, I was filled with guilt.
きっとそう言ってほしかったのかもしれない。
That sounds like Setsumi, but why would they say protagonist? I wanted them to blame me more. Being treated kindly hurt. I remember uncontrollable feelings of irritation, even anger towards myself. So in this Narcissu too, like they're naming it as protagonist, as Setsumi. If God were around, I wanted him to quickly heal me. Or if that wasn't possible, let me die now. Everyone else in the midst of erasing my existence. But in contrast, my parents sought to make me stand out. That was much more painful. Even as I was being treated kindly, I hated myself for being unable to repay it. I cursed the fact that one of the countless misfortunes in the world happened to fall off by chance. Such times, smiling and putting on a cheerful air may have been what I was supposed to do. All I was able to manage was to quietly eat these fries. I really didn't like her. That's interesting, but she ate the fries when she was with a protagonist in Narcissu 1. The burning sun and the cries of cicadas. When the white rainy season clouds cleared and it had turned completely into summer, being readmitted to the hospital for the nth time, finally I was discharged. But that wasn't the end of it. The word discharge also meant until the next time I was admitted, the beginning of a long life of outpatient care. Under the blazing sky today, I again walked the 3-minute distance in my pajamas. My mother, who had offered to come along, I replied. In my own way, it was supposed to be out of consideration for her. The desolate look on her face, my words had also hurt. My feet happened to stop before some school. Most likely it was an elementary school, since it was already summer vacation and there weren't many people around in sight. In front of that empty schoolyard, for some reason, I wound up gazing at it, without thinking my feet had stopped. Occasionally, I would see happy children running around and my eyes would follow them. Under the blazing sky, the long-sleeved pajamas were hot. I felt strongly out of place gazing at the schoolyard. After standing there for a while, I once again began to walk. However, it wasn't toward the hospital, but home. And once I returned to my room, I took out the sailor uniform that had been in my dresser. Sleeves that I hadn't passed my arms through in 3 years. Just like new uniform. Previously, they had been worn for only a single week. Now, to me, they were the only clothes other than pajamas I'd owned. Once again, walking under the blazing sky, the noisy cicadas and running sweat was the same as just before. But people who walked by, their eyes did not pause on me. Even I, as part of the backdrop of the city, a part of what builds up everyday life, felt accepted. And then, when I entered the schoolyard from earlier, before my eyes was a metal bar for children to play with. Small children. I extended my hand towards it. Placing strength into my arms, I pulled with all my might and kicked at the ground. A moment's sensation of floating. My body spins around. Aww. Aww, Satsumi. I whispered that aloud for some reason while I looked around from the bar. That strong sunlight made the playground seem white and made the ground look that way. Occasionally I could hear the voices of happy children and insistent voices of cicadas declaring that summer was the season. My arms already began to shake from supporting my weight. I soaked up the present. Why was it that I was suddenly wanting to do this? I wondered. The exact reason, not even I knew. But now, the times I wore anything but pajamas dwindled. Pressure from the need to do otherwise had also disappeared. Did I find that to be sad? Or perhaps I wanted to test if I still had the strength?
私はみんなと同じはず。
Should be the same as the normal people who were over there. But just from a somersault around the bar, I shouldn't be making such a strained face. Because I felt that way, I forced myself to make a smile. But just as I was unable to stop the shaking of my arms, it seemed that too was. Oh man.
熱い。
Even though it was still morning, the asphalt was wavy from the heat. Today also looked like it would be a hot day. And in that, as always, I headed towards the hospital. Even though I could have gone in pajamas with this distance that I had to go out, I've come to wear my sailor uniform. Most likely I was still wavering. How long this wavering will continue, not even I knew. One day, I may suddenly just be able to give up. It was just that I had come to think that the span of 3 years was more than enough time for a person. Then passing by the school, as entrance to the hospital was before my eyes.
ボタン取りかかってる。
In my hands was a small tote bag. I noticed that the button had held the handle was fraying off. I'm not sure how long it had been like that, but coming all this way, I wasn't going to go back home. So I held the bag to my chest and I continued toward the hospital. The usual doctor, the usual exchanges, and today's examination ended. When my condition was stable, it was once a week. 3 times a week seemed to be the sign of a short hospitalization. With this, the week's examination was over. As I thought that, I headed towards the exit on the first floor. The doctors weren't seeing patients in the afternoon, so the halls were mostly empty. Occasionally, a doctor would walk by with a group of intern-like people in the tow. A nurse rushed to the first aid window. A patient, probably under dietary restrictions, was in the shop buying snacks. The wristband was visible green, which I heard was for digestive disorders. All of this was just the ordinary, everyday hospital, and in front of that shop was the first time I met her.
ねえ、あなた。
Oh, is it Chihiro? Suddenly, a bright voice called out to me and surprised me. Turning around before me was the pajama-clad figure of a young woman I didn't recognize. I thought I might have been someone I met while I was admitted here, but I didn't recall the face or figure.
何か。それ、ボタン取れかかってるわよ。
As she spoke, she pointed at my tote bag. It might have been a simple act of kindness, but since I already noted that problem, I had trouble finding a reply.
そうね。そうねって、それだけ？どうも。
As I spoke, I lowered my head a bit. Because I already knew my reply came out hesitantly. Even then, it was too difficult to say thank you very much. The young woman that I had seen before, her long black hair and bright voice left an impression. I mean, to be fair, not even to be fair, if I already knew the button was falling off and someone told me, hey, your button's falling off, I don't know, for some reason that would probably piss me off. I don't know, maybe not piss me off, but I'd probably be like, oh, okay, thanks, I already knew that sort of thing. So Setsumi's taking it quite well. Looking at her slippers, and the kind provided by the hospital, she was probably not an outpatient, but admitted. Looking at her thin wrist, her wristband was white. That was a color I hadn't seen before.
ねえ直してあげよっか
Oh, so it's not Chihiro!
私ソーイングセットも持ってるから
Okay.
でも
At her sudden words, I hesitated, but it wasn't over a button that didn't mean much. These past few years, because of my existence was only being erased, I've had absolutely no experience with someone actively trying to relate to me.
いいからほらいらっしゃい
Wait, so at this point, like, Setsumi is on 7th floor.
別に変な場所じゃないから
With those words, she started walking briskly. Wait! So they both have same bracelets, right? And while wrapped in mixed feelings, I followed behind. We got into the elevator. Without a word, she pressed the button for the highest floor.
あらもしかして知ってたそれほどは
7th floor, the place they called the hospice. I wasn't too familiar with it, and of course I've never been there. For one thing, I heard that people not involved with it was barred from entering. It probably meant that if this young woman here were headed to the 7th floor, she was a person from there. Well, yeah! Like, what? Okay, soon the elevator reached its stop. Immediately in front of it was a nurse's station. And when the doors opened altogether, the gazes of the nurses turned toward us.
私の知り合いだから
With that one sentence, they were once again back to their work. No one looked toward us anymore. Wait, so Setsumi's not even, like, in 7th floor right now, okay. It was just my first time here. But without putting my finger on it, I thought the atmosphere was especially heavy. The place the young woman finally took me to look like a lounge area. It was very different from the 3rd or other floors that I've been admitted to. Those didn't have sofas or the TVs.
すぐに直してあげるわね
With that, she took my tote bag and, with what seemed like a practiced hand, began fixing the button. And like her, I sat down on the sofa and watched. Even if I looked around, there were a few signs of people. Occasionally an elderly or helper-like person going by was about all.
ところであなた風邪でもひいたのそれとも誰かのお見舞い今は通院中だから
An outpatient mean? So they can just come in whenever? I hesitated over how to answer, but told the truth. I had that I had just been discharged recently and I was an outpatient now.
あなたも大変そうねちなみに部活は何やってるの部活だって今は夏休みのはずでしょ
As she spoke, she pointed at my uniform.
入院してたくらいだから文化部かしらもしくは運動部のマネージャーとか
I would love for both, or the latter.
別に何もやってないあら意外な回答だったわねもしかしてパジャマは嫌い
At the sudden perceptive question, I couldn't find the words to respond with. Not that I hate pajamas or anything, but I sensed that the precise reason would be difficult to put into words. And what this young woman had asked probably aimed straight at that. She hadn't simply been asking whether I literally liked
お
pajamas.
姉さんはここの人ええこう見えても7階の住人よ手っ取り早く言えば死亡確定者ってことね
Yikes, alright. I mean, I know that's true, but that which I had only known on the level of rumors was now clearly spelled out by a resident of the 7th floor. To use the word death in such a bright and relaxed tone, at least it didn't seem like I could comprehend. This person, what on earth could her thoughts be?
ねえねえよかったらまた遊びに来てよ私が何もやることがなくて退屈なのよそれにここは面会時間も遅くまで大丈夫だから
And with that, she told me various things about the 7th floor. Whoops! I didn't mean to press that. Up until now, I had only known vaguely, but it seemed that the rumors that it was a place to wait and die were true.
他にもルールとかあるんだけどこれ以上は言えないわどうしてそりゃ決まってるじゃないあなたはここの住人ではないからよ
It was only then, when she whispered that, or did her face cloud. I felt that expression held loneliness, and seemed filled with intensity as well. Right now I was wearing these clothes, steep with the lingering regret for once normal days. And unlike myself, this young woman, no, the residents of the 7th floor, probably given up on everything, had already had made up their resolve.
ついに来たついでにでも寄ってよどんなに頑張ってもあと半年くらいだからさ
She said that, and by the way of farewell, she once more turned her cheery face toward me. Long black hair, white wristband, and a bright, relaxed way of talking were my impressions. Still, neither of us knew the other's name. My 15th summer. This was our first meeting. Is this Himiko? But her voice sounds so different. A few days later, I again visited the hospital. However, it wasn't like it was an examination day. If it is alright with you, come to play. The words of those young women I met a few days ago. Maybe because I was somewhat interested in her, or maybe I was curious about that 7th floor place for some reason. I came to the highest floor. With a nod to the nurses who looked my way, I made my way to the door that the young woman had told me.
はいどうぞ来たわよいらっしゃい待ってたわさ座って座って
Sitting up in her bed, she offered the folding chair next to her. The first room on the 7th floor that I'd entered felt a little different from the 3rd floor rooms I was used to.
悪かったわねでもねきっと来てくれると思ってたわあなた暇だしなんで決めつけなのよだって私たち病人の仕事は寝ることでしょ世の中でこんな暇な人はいないわあらそう思わない別にもう相変わらずクールねってそうだねえあなたアイス好きあれじゃあ嫌いはい決まりじゃあ食堂まで一緒に食べに行きましょう遠慮しなくていいってお姉さんおごってあげるからよく知らない人にはお母さんにそう言われてるなんで笑うのよごめん悪気はないから本当にでも確かにその通りね知らない人についてちゃダメよね姫子よ
It is Himiko!
お姫様の姫に子供の子ついでに言うと天秤座の AB 型あなたは水亀座の O 型節美じゃあこれで知り合いね節美
Aww.
焼けた日差しとセミの声この真っ白な7階にも響いていた姫子と名乗るまだ私はお姉さんのことをこの日から長い夏が始まろうとしていた
Oh wow. Interesting!